So we're back for another video on the Hoover mod, and of course that takes us back to Hoover's blog. And what I want to look at today is, so we come down to this part right here, and this is the important part. It's interesting to note that Volkswagen included all, in bold, of the modifications to the Type 4 engine. So let's look up here and see what the modifications are. Alright, let's read these modifications off. 100% filtered oil, that's 1. Increased oil volume to the right hand side of the crankcase. 2. 100% oil flow through the lifters. 3. Grooved rockers and rocker arm shafts, that'd be 4. Swivel foot adjusters, 5. So we've got those 5 modifications, let's check them out. Alrighty, 100% filtered oil. They stuck an oil filter directly to the edge of the case. And that's a no-brainer. Now let's talk a little bit more about this increased oil volume to the right-hand side of the crankcase. Let's take a look at what he is talking about there. Over here we've got a Type 1. Over here we've got a Type 4. There, to get to the right-hand side, you go through this right here, and hopefully you're familiar with your own case. The oil goes below and it goes above through a fairly small notch in order to provide oil to this part of the system. Now if you come over here to the Type 4, it goes through a notch that passes over the top of the cam bearing. Let's take a look real quick at that. There's that notch right there. It passes over the top of the cam bearing to go to the other side. And when you get to the other side, you will see that the pressure relief valve is on this side. Now, they didn't specifically Hoover mod this. This is put on this side. Hoover modded this thing. And this thing has the oil pressure relief valve on this side of the case. Volkswagen decided to take this, move it to the other side. That's where they put it. So if you're going to relieve your pressure, obviously you're going to want to flow the excess oil over to your pressure relief valve. It's not because they Hoover modded, it's because they moved the pressure relief valve. So his claim that they took this and did it because they've Hoover modded it, that they took his ideas, no, that's false. The reason for doing that is because of the location of the pressure relief valve. Alrighty, next on the list is going to be 100% oil flow through the lifters. The key word there is through the lifters, not 100%. Geez, I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about 100%, but I believe he's talking about the time. The amount of time that oil flows through the lifters is 100%. So for 100% through the lifter, he's talking about the oil going to the lifter and then out. So it has to go to the lifter, out. Where over here we can see that the oil comes across and there are 2 bands. Over here there's a single band. Now this drawing is actually drawn incorrectly. This is showing the lifters at lift. And at lift the bands line up. At the base circle of the cam, the lifter pushes down. This line does not line up with the oil groove, and they push down. And you don't get 100% lifting. And there's multiple reasons why you know that it's not doing 100% lifting. Oiling. Let's go back over to the Type 1. First of all, 1, 2, 3. There are 3 bands oiling the cam. Over here there's a single right there. All the oil for all the cam bearings must pass through that right there. So you come back over here and you see a cam bearing that has nothing being pulled off of it, and a cam bearing with no oil being pulled off. And here's a cam bearing. It's also feeding all the lifters, all the rockers, the push rods, everything else that goes to the top end. And the takeaway from this is that this bearing, this cam bearing, is the most lightly loaded of all the cam bearings. I mean, you can sacrifice the oil on this cam bearing by bleeding it off to this. Okay, as I said, this is going to be a main cam bearing. This one's going to be a main cam bearing. Then you go over to Type 4. We know that these are the primary cam bearings right here and right here. If we're going to flow 100% oil out, what happens to the oil that goes to the cam bearing here and here? This gets reduced oil. This gets reduced oil. Okay, this one, it's going to get its oil before anything happens. It doesn't bleed off that way or this way. It just comes down, take this passage, hit the cam bearing, fill it up. This, however, is the most lightly utilized cam bearing. So if you're bleeding the oil off right here and you're bleeding it off right here, the heavy duty cam bearings are then starved for oil. So from an engineering standpoint, not just a physical standpoint, but from an engineering standpoint, you would never pass 100% oil through these and then starve your cam bearings. So yeah, Hoover's assumption that 100% through the lifter, not past the lifter, but through the lifter, is incorrect. So let us close out this little bit of discussion by talking about the last two things that are left: the grooved rockers and rocker arm shafts. Yeah, it looks like they actually did that. It's pretty wise to do that, but I'm going to do a little experiment in another video that shows that that doesn't really make much difference as far as oil passing through the system goes. And Ford Soupy type swivel foot adjusters. All right, that's the big one right there. That's the one that you can without a doubt say no. And in saying no to that one right there, that violates all, which makes his claim that all of these were done for the Type 4 to be false. He's misrepresenting stuff. So this is twice now he's misrepresented what he's trying to do here. He's pushing it. He's giving you this big hard sell. He's telling you how stupid those Volkswagen engineers are and how grand and glorious his plan was. It's so friggin' fantastic what he's done that it was picked up by Volkswagen and included in the Type 4. Oh, no. Volkswagen did not Hoover mod the Type 4. Flat out, they did not do it. Anyway, there's more to this later.